As we've been reporting, the verdict is in for Derek Chauvin, the former police officer charged in the death of George Floyd. After just 10 hours of deliberating, the jury has found Chauvin guilty on all charges. For more on this, let's bring in Professor of Practice at Harvard Law School, Alan Jenkins. Professor Jenkins, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us. You know, this case is going to be forever remembered for that video, for the emotional testimony of the bystanders, and of course the outcome. First of all, what was your own reaction to the verdict?
Well, first, Elaine, thank you for having me on. This verdict is very important, but to me it's most important because it spared Mr. Floyd's family, it spared Black and brown communities from a new injustice on top of the injustice of taking Mr. Floyd's life. This jury, I think, helped to bring us incrementally back from the abyss of total impunity for police officers, of a total devaluing of Black and brown lives. But I don't think we should mistake it for justice. The absence of injustice is not the same as justice.
Can you talk about, Professor, the power of that video that was captured by a young woman who was there, didn't even know George Floyd, but documented what were the last moments of his life while he was in custody. What impact do you think that had?
Well, I think, two things are noteworthy. One is, if this were not in the context of a police killing, the fact that someone, Mr. Chauvin, was captured on camera, on multiple cameras, snuffing the life out of another human being while witnesses begged him to stop, would be an open and shut case in any context. It's only because this was a police officer who committed the murder that we had real questions about whether the verdict would be guilty on all three counts, as it turned out to be. But I do think that that video was critical, not only because it captured the acts, but because we saw the nonchalant way in which former Officer Chauvin took Mr. Floyd's life. We saw everyone on the scene in that moment tried to help Mr. Floyd, except for the police. And we saw the impact during the trial, the impact that that had on those witnesses. It clearly changed their lives forever. And I think, fortunately, that was a message that was received by this jury.
And earlier, President Biden called the guilty verdict a giant step forward in the march towards justice in America. Where do you think things go from here? He also urged Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act.
Well, I certainly agree that the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, the Breathe Act should be passed. I think other types of changes that really begin to transform policing or the presence of public safety officers. I unfortunately don't think I can agree that this verdict is itself a giant step. I mean, we saw Black and brown people killed by police in circumstances that appeared to be unjustified, even as Officer Chauvin was being tried for murder. And so I think to call this a giant step forward in terms of justice in our law enforcement would be an exaggeration, unfortunately.
Well, George Floyd's death sparked global protests over police brutality and injustice. Now that the verdict is in, do you think this case will bring about fundamental change, though, to policing and civil rights in this country?
Well, I don't think that this verdict alone is going to be, as I say, a particularly giant step in that direction. But I do think that the outpouring of concern and activism when the video of Mr. Floyd's, the killing of Mr. Floyd, was first released, is already bringing about change. So I think it's the kind of awakening of many people who perhaps were doubtful about what Black and brown communities have been saying for decades and perhaps centuries about how they are treated by too many police officers, that has begun to break through. And so I think the video, the reality of Mr. Floyd's, the murder of Mr. Floyd, is going to have an influence. I think the verdict is, perhaps one step in that direction, but I think it's more about the activism than about the verdict.
All right, Alan Jenkins for us. Alan, thank you very much for sharing your perspective with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.